Today, I've got another one of those exclusive interviews from the radio. You know, like we did the guy, the steel worker who spoke to Justin Trudeau. If you haven't seen that, that's an awesome interview we got with him. Just look in the back catalogue, you'll find it somewhere. I'll put a link to it, but I'll probably forget. Anyway, Pierre Poilievre came onto the Ben Mulroney show on 6:40 a.m. and he spoke about Montreal and how Canada is now, and why he's sort of saying, you know, where people say, well, Canada's not broken, or he's saying what he will do to fix Canada, to make it the Canada that I emigrated to in 2008, the Canada where I was proud to become Canadian when I passed my citizenship test, and still are proud to be Canadian, but I just don't like seeing the country being destroyed. So let's get in there. Let's have a listen to the interview.
Well, we're reaping what he sowed. This is what happens when a prime minister spends 9 years pushing a toxic woke ideology, politics dividing and subdividing people by race, gender, vaccine status, religion, region, age, wealth. On top of driving people apart, he systematically tore down what used to unite us with what he called Canada a post-national state with no core identity. He erased our military and veterans, the famous 5 who got women the vote, the Terry Fox, all from our passports, to replace them with meaningless swirls, snowflakes, and even a drawing of himself as a boy. He opened the borders to terrorists and lawbreakers, and he called anyone who questioned it a racist. He sends his Liberal MPs into a mosque to say one thing and then to a synagogue to say exactly the opposite. He allowed Canada to become a playground of foreign interference. He even kept Iran's IRGC terrorists legally allowed to operate in Canada for 4 years after they murdered 55 of our Canadian citizens in a missile attack against an unprovoked passenger aircraft. He passed laws that allowed rampant offenders out of prison within hours of their 80th arrest. And what's the result after 9 years of Trudeau? Assassinations by foreign governments on Canadian soil, fire bombings of synagogues and churches, extremist violence against mandirs and gurdwaras. 100 churches have been burned or vandalized. There's been a 251% increase in hate crime under this prime minister. And while he was dancing, Montreal was burning.
Yeah.
My message is we're not going to let him divide us anymore.
So Bill Mulroney then asked Pierre Poilievre, what would you do when you become Prime Minister? What will you do to stem the chaos that's been created by this Trudeau Liberal government?
A number of things. First of all, the tone and tenure. We have to focus on what unites us, what we have in common as Canadians. Pride in our history, support for our military, upholding of Canadian law, gratitude for what our ancestors built and passed down the generations to us. We need to bring back in-person citizenship ceremonies so that when people come to Canada, they do an in-person citizenship ceremony. They're handed a Canadian flag in beautiful ceremonies where they learn that they are about to join they've just now won the lottery of life by joining the greatest country on earth. That we need to secure our borders, and we need to stop the wokeism that divides people by race and religion and ethnicity. Start to judge people, as Martin Luther King said, by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And finally, we need to say, look, everyone from everywhere is welcome to apply to become an immigrant to our country. If accepted, they can bring their culture, their traditions, their language, in some cases, their families, but we don't want to bring foreign conflicts into Canada. That is one of the great things about being an immigrant to Canada is you get to leave the violence and division behind and be part of a peaceful country where everyone gets along and judges each other by their personal attributes. And that is the country that we need to bring home.
So then he was asked, what can the federal government do for what's happening at the local level with these, well, so-called protests? They're more like hate marches from what I've seen. Because at the moment, from what I've seen on the news over the weekend, it's hateful to be outside as a J-word person. You know what I mean? Just the Rebel News guy got arrested just for being a J-word person and asking questions. Like, you can't even say the J-word because it's almost like it's inciting. Like, if I said the J-word on here, we'll get Hamas sympathizers coming on and saying, "Oh, it's about this, that, and the other. Oh, you can't be defending them." These aren't the people who are causing all the trouble in Canada. They're peacefully protesting for peace. If you were just peacefully protesting for peace, go and do it at Queen's Park or at Parliament. Don't go to where people live and terrorize them in their own homes. That's not peaceful protesting. That's not what Canadians do. And let's listen to what Poilievre has to say on that.
Well, first of all, we have to speak loudly and clearly that mayors have to tell the police that they have the authority to enforce the law. I think the ground level police are concerned that they won't have backing by the political leadership if they actually arrest people. Yeah. The frontline police officers are courageous and they're doing everything they can. But I believe that they worry that the woke political leadership, both municipally and federally, will not back them up if they do the hard work of stopping these crimes. And we need to tell them that they can stop these crimes. Secondly, we need to check if there's a need to toughen the laws for violent acts of vandalism and disorder so that we can actually lock these people up. And frankly, if you're a temporary resident in Canada and you're breaking businesses and throwing bricks through windows, you should be deported and made inadmissible as a permanent resident or citizen. We don't want people here who are doing crime. So, that's another step we could make to deter that kind of behavior.
Well, I thought that interview was pretty straightforward. And really, for Poilievre, that was really bang on the money and bang on the point. He didn't whiffle about how he's going to cut the crime, and he didn't do any of the mem things and the speechy things that he normally does when he's on the radio. He cut straight to the point there, and that's something that Canadians must appreciate about this guy. And why, really, Canada, he's got to be a better place with him in charge. Sockboy can't handle what's going on. He's trying to be. He's one of these people I see. Tell me if you agree with this, but he is trying to be on both sides at the same time. He's like a really bad mediator. A really, really bad mediator. And that's not the way to do it. You've got to, you've got to stand by your guns. You've got to have some morals somewhere along the line. You must have morals. You must have a stand on something. He's got a stand on carbon tax. He's stuck on that. So why can't he be stuck on what can we call it? Hate crime in the streets of Canada daily. Not to mention we go on about the catch and release and all the people who are committing crime doing that. Anyway, that's enough for me. That's enough for Poilievre. Hope to see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock, guys. AM, not PM. Cheers.